and to share the same passion and mindset about the super yachts, the main reason we are all here together today. So thank you for that. Today we're going to speak a little bit about the charter business. And to start, I would like for each of you to introduce and explain your role in the industry. So we can start.
Okay, thank you everyone for your time today. Very humbled to be here. For me, I'm in the operation role as a yacht captain. I've done this for 25 years and I'm passionate about it. I think it's important that we do understand that the challenges exist, and for me, my goal is a frictionless experience for the client. And everyone in this room has a role to play in that. For me, it's an operational role from when they start the process of chartering, for example, until the end process where the memories are created. So it's a unique opportunity I have. I'm very blessed to have it and be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Graeme Lord. I was chief engineer on the yachts for 10 years, then transitioned 25 years ago into the yacht management world. During that time, we've heard all day today that the crew is the most important element of the yachting experience. So for the last 8 years, I've been focusing on changing the way in which the crew employment is handled. I have a firm now in Cayman Islands. We employ the crew and we lease it back to the owner. But the end goal is to increase retention and longevity of crew members.
Thank you.
And I'm Barrett Wright. I'm with Phil Robinson. We're a global yacht management company, so we're a full service company. So building a lot on what Liam does for the client experience, as well as what Graeme does for the crew experience, where you try to be a great all-around advisor for all yacht owners and sort of all aspects of yacht ownership. So it's really working closely with the captains, it's really working closely with the crew and the owners to make sure that there's the best possible onboard ownership experience that can be had. So that's building on what Michael, we're part of the advisory team for a great yacht program.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to start with the questions. This will be a general questions. So the first question is, the charter market has grown significantly in the recent years, but do you think the business is more profitable now, or it's just more expensive to open it?
I think if you're looking at a boat, when you're going to purchase a boat, particularly for first-time yacht owners, I think you need to consider what you're going to do. So if you're going to buy a boat, you have an interest in chartering a boat, well, you need to look at the platform for it. So if there's an existing boat that you like, always look at what maybe the charter reputation is, what amenities it has on board, what things you're going to have to change and alter in order to make it more appealing to the greater audience. But if you're going to be building a boat, then I think you need to make sure that you're building a boat that is going to be able to charter, so it needs to be commercially compliant. So again, you need to make sure that you've got your watertight doors, there's a safety, everything there. But then I think if you're purchasing a boat and you're thinking that charter is going to, and you need to rely on charter income in order to own the boat, then I think you need to look at some other purpose that this isn't for you. So I think you really need to understand that you have a boat, you may have expectations for it, that my boat is the best boat that's out there, we're sitting in this place, mine's the best crew, but that may not necessarily be the perception for everybody outside, because you're competing with many other people who are thinking the same. Wonderful crew, wonderful personalities, wonderful platforms. So I think it's managing that expectation. It's also, if you want your boat to be a charter machine, well, back-to-back-to-back charter means a lot of wear and tear. And so then that's going to cost you more in the long run, whether it's downtime. So you've got to make sure that you maintain that. If you want to charter so that maybe you can facilitate a great refit, an upgrade, or a paint job, then there's a consideration. So aim to 4 to 5 or 6 charters, in a season or something like that to cover it. But I think the great news is charter keeps the crew, really acute. It keeps their, training going. It keeps their skills up, and it's a great opportunity for them to make, a lot of money. $60,000 a year is a great, take-home additional bonus for, facilitating a great experience. So I think there's a lot of things to consider.
Profit and yacht don't really go in the same sentence. I think it's at the very best. If you can get up to about 12 weeks of charter, you could cover your operating expenses, but that's not going to cover your cost of money. It's going to cost amortized cost for paid work and major overhauls and maintenance. So, but to get to 12 weeks, you're going to have to give up key dates. You're going to have to give up the holidays. You're going to have to give up things like one good Grand Prix, Christmas in St. Bart's. So I think it helps. Profit? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I often say it's sort of profit and loss, it's pleasure and loss. And that's the way I have communications with owners. I'm very blessed to have a great ownership model that I work with and great brokers and Northrop & Johnson. But for me as an operation, I think we all agree that the expectations have gone up. So from an operational cost perspective, that traditionally means more money, realistically. So how do we offset that when the value of the yacht is generally going down and the owners traditionally look at it and not wanting the expenses to go up? So it leaves this gap, this uncomfortable world. And I love that world because it's a world of opportunity. It's a world where you can become more streamlined in what you do and you can put the people back into the problem. And that's why I invest in a lot of the teams that I work with and people in the industry to solve this problem. And we've had some great speakers up here today. But when it comes down to the numbers of it all, the yachts that do thrive in the charter market are the ones that understand the trends of the clients and the expectations of the clients, as we're understanding it's a younger generation with more net worth. Their expectations are different to when I started yachting 25 years ago. It was a lot easier to catch a fish and cook a fish and that was enough, catch a lobster. Now it's not, it's a mind game. It's a real mind game. It starts from the moment you understand, you've got a charter and these are the clients, and the crew really have to engage in how to foresee to create the best experiences. And it happens. To see clients on the yacht like Unbridled sitting in front of a waterfall in Alaska, they've seen whales all day, and they're holding their family and they're looking at the waterfall and they're having a champagne, and that's it. That's what we're all here for.
Well, I think when you create that experience, I think the goal for any successful charter program is also to bring back repeat clients. So, that's sort of your guarantee, and I think a lot of really successful programs do have those people that come back year after year or every couple of years, which, that's exactly what we're building for. They know they're gonna have a great time.
I think if you have a repeat client, that means a lot. You did it right, because it's not that easy. Actually, my second question is about expectations. So, the guests today expect experiences closer to luxury hospitality. Are charter operations being pushed beyond what we can do on board? And what is your opinion about the APA? How is the APA managed on board? Do you think there is anything that we can improve or make the experience better for the crew and the guests?
There's a lot of things to unpack in that question. It's a very good question. When we start about the guest experience, they're demanding more, yes, but they're also not actually, engaging too much in what they're requesting. It's not more of a yes, yes, yes relationship anymore. It's more of a you should understand the client and their expectations and provide a seamless experience from the flight to the boarding to the itinerary planning. And it's wonderful to work with so many great brokers in the industry that understand that seamless experience starts on their end. And as a captain, I really have a great relationship with these brokers because it creates the expectation of the client and they know what they like. When we come into onboarding and the crew, there's not enough done. Training is everything. And we look at these residences, and we've had some great panelists up here today, and it's the same message: training, training, training. I'm very fortunate to work with some great organisations like International Seakeeper Society, International Superyacht Society, Plate Superyacht Alliance. These are companies that set standards and they really help raise the bar within the industry. But I also, personally, I don't think we're doing enough from a hospitality sector. I grew up in a restaurant in Australia in Byron Bay, and I grew up with my mother and father, and it was a family restaurant. So the requirement to serve was brought into me from a young age. So for me, my success is measured in the service of others. That's how I measure my success. How the client feels, how they wake up in the morning. Was it a good sleep? Was it a good service experience? And that's what I don't think a lot of the generation of yacht crew are coming into the industry with that same cultural mindset. And that's why people like myself really look for organisations like Hill Robinson that understand that the training of crew really is the forefront in the success of our future for the clients.
Yes, exactly. Do you have anything else, Barrett?
I think it's become too complicated from what I see, from the feedback I get from charter clients is just make it happen. The concept of for anybody who doesn't know, APA, Advanced Provisioning Allowance, you can get the yacht and the crew. Everything else is on top of it, and really it's up to the guests or whoever their lead person is to decide food preferences, destinations, activities. And I think that's too much nowadays for most people to want to deal with themselves. I know from an owner's perspective, they go, why don't you just make the APA go away? This is the itinerary, this is what we're going to do. Here's what's on board, and if you don't like something that's on board, leave your credit card and we'll bring what you want. As opposed to sort of a bareboat type of environment where somebody in the charter group has to make all the decisions. And now you add it on to anybody that has to move money around the world, like we all do, it's hard. So adding the element of APN is, as you know, in Italy now you're not allowed to spend more than $1,000 cash. After that, 1,000 euros, you can't be cash. So the APA model is horribly outdated. It doesn't really work, and I think we just made our lives way too complicated. The other side of that, and I'm sure you experienced this, I know I did as a crew member, you normally only get that information about 36 hours before you go to pick up the charter. So instead of the crew resetting and having a bit of a break so that they can pick up their guests nice and fresh, they're running all around town trying to pick up these, quite frankly, ridiculous requirements in a town they're not familiar with. And trying to spend cash, or I'm sure that anybody in the yacht management world knows how many times we had to do the phone call. We got 8 loads of groceries, and the credit card or debit card stopped working. It's a pain in the ass.
But it's difficult because you don't know what they want, and so then when you charter the yacht, it's very difficult to understand. Even sometimes the clients they don't know. If they have a week, in the middle they just start with new ideas. So I myself consider that APA is important to have on board to secure the owner also and the crew.
Well, sometimes you don't have enough APA, so you're constantly asking for more or it was beyond. So if you go forward and kind of intimidate somebody at the beginning with all the additional fees, you've got the charter fees, then you've got the VAT, and then you've got delivery fees possibly, and then you've got the APA on top of it. So all of a sudden something becomes $1 million for the week, lickety split. So that can also be something that's I think intimidating. But I think the great crew too know when you get on a boat and you're a charter, you're relying on the crew to tell us we're going to have the best experience. You have all the hidden secrets. The captain knows where to go. The captain knows the best fishmonger. The captain knows where we're going to find that one-of-a-kind experience that you're looking for. So, if it were me, if I ever have the opportunity to really enjoy a charter the way I want, I don't want to make a decision. I want to say this is what I like. I really don't like to eat sweetmeats, so organs stay away. But everything else, have at it. And if you tell me I'm going to like it, then I'm going to say I probably will like it, and we go from there. I think that's the whole entire enjoyment of it, is relying on the other people's experience to ensure that you've got a great experience, and that's what the crew and the charter manager and what your charter broker's for.
I think that's in line with setting expectations. So this is, if you want to charter this boat X, this is what you're going to get. And of course, the answer is always yes, but. We're not going to start at a no. But here's the consequence of that, and I'm sure Liam's experiences, I certainly did when I was on board. When they get the bill and they thought it was going to be $2,000 and it's $8,000, you know where that difference is coming out of? It's coming out of the crew tip. And it's really not the crew's, it's not their fault. It's they get penalized.
I do have a question, everybody knows what is the meaning of the APA? Okay, it's not very sure. Because sometimes they don't know. Okay, we can move with
It's the advanced provisioning allowance, just in case.
Thank you. Number 3 is, as guest expectation rise, who has the final authority to say no when the weather, regulations, or daily operations become an issue? The captain, the owner, the manager, or somebody else? And I can start with you?
Yeah, it's captains have got heavy shoulders and we bear a lot of burden, but I like everyone to understand too that as a captain, a lot of time these clients come, and a lot of times people put the value on the captain and it's their client. No, the brokerage firms bring these clients to us and entrust us to make sure they have a wonderful experience and they stay safe. So the relationship of responsibilities must be shared between the captain and the brokerage and say the charter agent and charter broker. So a lot of communication between the captain and the charter agent must happen, because that's when the decisions, you know, like the Wolf of Wall Street, we can make it, you know, but once you establish those relationships and the transparency and the honesty with the charter brokers and charter agents, their client does feel safe in those decisions. And that usually happens about a week or two before, like whether it is a phenomenon, but it's also predictable. So you need to adjust your itineraries accordingly. For me, like the moment clients are safely on board and within coming down Marina, that's when I communicate with the charter brokers and say, the clients are safely here, welcome on board, here's some pictures, and we're off to sea. So it's the constant reinforcing the relationship so the brokers feel safe with the charter experience, and that creates the expectations for the client. So in the end, yes, it's the captain that gets the blame, but we can share it. We can have a good time to prevent those things happening.
But I think sometimes the charters, it may be their first time on a boat, or maybe they've jumped up in size and there's a whole different dynamic to them. You know, we've talked about, you know, depth and sort of capacity. And so, you know, case in point, just going back to, you know, lunacy and everybody commenting about seeing, you know, all the boat activity that was, you know, off of Sea Spice last night. Well, you know, we've got some people who are on board, and, you know, from the client's perspective, well, I put the DJ up forward and I asked everybody to sit down, but everybody wants to stand up because everybody's dancing. But, you know, that seemed fine for the charter client who was like, this is great, I've accommodated you, but the captain still can't see. So there's still an issue at night with this stuff going. So who does have the right to say, actually, this really is not safe? And so, you know, the client doesn't own the boat. You know, the captain does have that, you know, duty of care. You know, it is the owner's boat. So I think that, you know, it is up to the captain to say, this is not safe in the best interest of all of you, your guests, charter principal, I'm looking after you. And I think it's the responsibility of the manager to also, as a safety manager, to make sure that that captain is backed up. And then also, you know, the owner to say, yep, I completely agree with this, and I give the total authority to the captain who deemed this was not safe, this was not anybody's good judgment, so, you know, I deem that, you know, this is it. We're going to cut this right now. We'll do something else that's pretty cool, you know, the next best thing. But, you know, I think you've got to look at, you know, safety of life. You know, that's what we're all looking at. And I don't think you can jeopardize any of that. It'd be a really, really bad bummer if you're going out and there's a big accident and somebody doesn't come home from the charter. You know, then there's a bigger problem that's going to come from that. But, you know, I think it is the responsibility of the owner, the manager, you know, backing up the captain, while also ensuring that the charter gets everything that they do want.
Thank you. Do you have any opinion?
Yeah, the captain has ultimate authority, and that's maritime law, and that's the way it should be. But I think that backing up the captain, that's a real weak link here. Is that it's really tough when you have guests on board and you have to go and give them bad news, because you got to keep on seeing them every hour for as long as they're on board. That sucks. So that's where a good broker would jump in and be there with the bad news, or good manager. You know, that's sort of, when I had the yacht management company, the captain's a good news guy and I'm the bad news guy. So if you're working with charter brokers that do have the guts to call their clients and say, hey, what you're doing is what you're asking for is just simply not going to work. Cool thing that at least for them, they can hang up the phone. They might get fired, might not, who knows, but they don't have to look them in the eye for the next couple of weeks, days, whatever it is.
Yeah, I agree. I'll give you a quick example of when, you know, in Alaska last year, and Russian clients wanted to go on an iceberg with caviar and vodka, and that's the request. And it sounds like a wonderful request. So first thing I did say, no problem. So we'll work through the process. And that just engages the communication. And obviously at the same time, I'm like a duck, and my feet and my mind are running 100 miles an hour. Thinking it's the worst thing that can happen in my life, in my career. Long story short, we found a glacier that was grounded, that was solid, and we discussed it with the charter clients, and we walked down the path with the charter broker, and we took proactive steps. You know, we got the result for the client, which was really difficult, but we took the right steps. So I'm a big believer in not being reactive, and I think being proactive. And I'm very fortunate to work with a wonderful crew that support me, and we all try and look ahead and look out for each other. That is in the best interest of the client, to give them that experience.
Thank you for that. The next question is, maybe we can start with you. What do you think will separate the most successful charter yachts from the rest over the next 5 years?
I think, again, we all commented, it's gonna be the crew. Really could be a great chef that's on board, and that could be the defining feature. We're gonna have a gastronomic experience, there's that. But I think it is, being able to cater. So, something that's really dynamic. There's a lot of people that it's very important to have that multi-generational experience. So if you have a program and a crew and a boat that's able to accommodate all that stuff and make people happy, then I think that's wonderful. You've got the next generation of, the Gen Zs who are looking for more of an experience, maybe giving back, maybe it's, you go into the Galapagos and I got to go swimming with the iguanas, but I made a donation back, or we cleaned up something. So I think it's just kind of responding to who's going to what that experience is going to be. It's so relationship based, and I think it's so experience based that you have to. That's really what's going to make the difference. The toys, the type of boat that are coming in, all of that kind of stuff is so dynamic. But I really think this entire industry is so relationship built that I think that personal connection is really going to be the thing that's going to make something an experience dynamic. And Captain Liam's crew, you've got that social imprint on. People are seeing that regularly, and I think that really does make a difference. It's how is my experience going to be so special to me? So I think that's absolutely of the utmost importance.
Yeah, well said. I agree with you 100%. It's the crew. But I think there's accreditation that needs to come into this, and that comes down to the training. I think Alan Ulysses is a fantastic example of that. It is world class. The way he presented in the captain's chat and discussed the onboarding procedure of 1 week of solid training. I think standards are wonderful, but it's very hard. I'm just saying, if it can't be measured, it can't be managed. So a lot of times on board, we really try and measure the KPIs, the key performance indicators of crew and of service. And I think the charter vessels that are successful in the next 5 years and the trends are the ones that create the solid foundation that are relevant of the different clients' expectations. We meet a minimum. And that's where I have faith in the industry will go, because we've got great residencies, the Four Seasons, and all these companies that we're looking at now. We need to be better than that, which we are in a lot of ways, but we don't measure it in a lot of ways. So I challenge my fellow captains and crew and industries that let's push ourselves to the next level. Let's kind of take ourselves and judge ourselves, I think, to reach those standards that we want to have.
I don't know much for sure, but I do know this for sure, is you can have a most amazing yacht in the world, but if you have an average crew, you're going to have an average experience. Conversely, you can have an average yacht with an amazing crew, you're going to have an amazing experience. I think my experience, you kind of watched the last few years, the first time you go on a private jet, it's woo, but once you've been on it 10 times, it's just another plane. The first time you go to the Bar America at the Hotel Barrett in Monaco, wow, it's amazing. But after you've been there 10 times, it's just another bar. The crew haven't had those experiences. So for what to them is amazing, to most guests, they've already done that 50 times. It's all right, So how do you get the education to that level? Right now, the crew training is all around the safety and the operation of the vessel. It's not really about what is 6-star, what is 7-star. When all you've experienced in your own life is 3-star, how the heck are you supposed to know that? That for me is the missing element, is really being able to expose crew to how do you get to that next level. And I think anybody that's stayed at really high-end hotels, you feel it as soon as you walk in. They know your name. You don't check in at a reception. If somebody walks up with the key for your room, they know as soon as you enter the premises, they know who you are. They walk you to the room, and when they're unpacking your bags, they do the paperwork. Unless you've experienced it, you just can't possibly understand it.
I think that's the one thing when you've got some of the charter programs, and we've even found, with some of the private programs, that the owner's experience is all the more improved, and they appreciate that when it's like, okay, I'm sending my crew ashore, and they're going to go and check out these experiences that we want to in advance. You'll get them the chance to enjoy it, and how they potentially can make that better. And I think a lot of the ownership, who do invest in training and have a healthy training budget, whether it be people coming on board and sort of training them in their area, or, ensuring that there's, online training that's available, or giving them the time rather than their vacation time to do that training ashore. I think that is that encourages, I think, a lot of, loyalty and I think commitment, to the programs. And I had one owner who was it is so important for him that the crew get the time off between the guest use, that they get to enjoy where they are, and he will sponsor, those things, whether a crew member wants to stay in their bunk and sort of have a time out, that's great, that's on them, but it's really important for him to have those people go out and have those experiences that the guests are also enjoying, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think that, more owners should take that approach to it. I think that, that for him, he's got a loyal crew, he's enjoying 2+ years with the majority of them, so I think that's good, not to him and his approach to yacht ownership.
Thank you so much. Also, I have a question for you. Why so many yachts owner choose the Cayman Island flags, and what are the benefits?
It's this is my experience, and the lawyers probably answer it better than I can, but from an ownership structure, it's clear who the owner is. So in the event that there's a dispute over ownership, or let's say you have a total loss, you know who's going to get paid. So it's clear title of who it is. But on a day-to-day basis, Cayman Islands is one of the few flags that the surveyors actually work for the flag, which means you have consistency of survey. And that becomes a big deal when you're doing your annual surveys. If it's a different group every time, they can come on and say, well, this was missed 8 years ago, so now you have to do this, this, and this. Whereas the Cayman policy is if it gets missed, then it's off the list. You get surveyed against the way the boat was delivered, not the way in which it would be delivered 5 years later.
Yeah, I agree. I would also add the legacy of United Kingdom and the Union Jack in the corner of the Cayman flag, and the history of the maritime sector. I mean, this isn't a new industry. The maritime sector, the superyacht sector is developing, but it's been here for 30 years, and the history of the maritime sector as an industry is huge, and that holds a lot of weight.
I think too, with some of the flags, you're going through flags of convenience, and things like that, making it easier. And I think it depends on, where you're gonna, use something. So in certain cases, just going to, Lisa, the panel previous with, Lisa commenting on having to change, flags based on your requirement. We've had bits where owners are really, really passionate about bringing on a particular captain, and so unfortunately that captain just will not get endorsed under that particular, flag. So where are we going to be able to make that happen? And so you kind of say, yes, well, we're, safety standards. You're going to want to stay with whitelist, Paris MOU people with great safety records. But we can't go ahead and do this, and it still relies on the captain to still perform just as well as it is required under the Cayman Islands, as required by the yacht manager, as required by the owner. So there is no sort of, convenience, I think, there. It's just different ways in which to make things happen that people want to see, but that shouldn't at all in any way, shape, or form, be any sort of compromise on the safety culture that's on board in the boat. So.
We have a little time left, so I have a final question. If someone is considering buying a yacht today, what should they understand about the charter as a business, and which destinations do you will recommend?
I don't think that you can rely on charter to operate your boat. You can't rely on it to make sure the bills are paid. And I think right now is a really interesting example. The price of fuel is so high. So there are some people now, within a market where you would otherwise see a lot of activity, they're kind of pressing pause a little bit. So this is more, on those in the 40 to 50 meter range, it's more accessible to people, but those aren't multiple billionaires. Those are people who have the ways and means to do it, but, a huge expense on the APA, is going to be fuel, and so at this point, people might be holding fire on seeing, what they're going to do. So when you've got, geopolitics and things like that that's going to come into play, that can significantly affect, where your boat might be and what's going on in that region, and whether or not you're going to be able to secure your 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks of charter for that year, or whether you're going to say, right now, if we get 2 or 3, again, something is better than nothing, so, it's still that. So I think you got to consider, what's going on in the world, and just making sure that that is factored into, years where it might be a little bit quiet due to factors completely beyond your control.
Thank you.
Oh, very well said. I think I look at it simply as a positive against negative. What are the positives and negatives of chartering? I feel chartering 100% from a positive aspect outweighs the negatives. The crew are happier, the vessel's getting an income stream, the vessel's getting exposure, whether it's for sale or for charter. Every yacht needs an identity. And to answer an exciting question, where to go? I'm a little biased, but I'm thinking Alaska on bridal this summer's pretty exciting. I come from a fisherman at heart, and the halibut, the salmon, the bears, the eagles, there's a lot going on in the world. And if you can get on a plane and go 4 or 5 hours and end up in Juneau, I'll be there waiting for you.
I think with the decision making, it always astounds me. We may have a fundamental flaw in what we do is our clients are all mavericks in their business, so of course now they're mavericks in our business. And they really have no idea what they're doing myself. So if you can be as honest as you possibly can and sit with your client and go, we should put a team together. And not necessarily my team, I can make some recommendations, but let's get 8 people in the room for half a day and sit with you, and let's hash this out. So make sure you actually know what decision to make. Just because your buddy did it, or just because your captain said it, or just because your brokers, 99% of the time, not the right decision. So invest a bit of time in it, and then you're going to have a better outcome, and end up in beautiful places like Alaska and have once in a lifetime experiences.
Yeah, I agree. Just on a final note though, I think the traditional charter model is really changing, and wonderful companies, and I concur with Mr. Moore, is Claire from Armada. That's a wonderful example of changing. You've got Alan from Glacier, that's a wonderful example of it changing. So we're kind of being squeezed from a lot of different angles, what the traditional charter, looks like. And with an APA, I think we change it. I think we'd be open, we'd be flexible in the industry, have uncomfortable conversations. Because at the end of the day, it's client driven. And with the more clients, the more individual expectations they have, the industry really needs to stand up and be a bit more transparent and open to change to provide the results for the clients. And that's success for me, it's the client happy.
I think for me, we're inherently insecure business for no good reason. There are more clients than there are yachts. We really, as an industry, are holding the keys. The end users really aren't. So I'm just going to say, grow some balls and stand up to your clients and if they move on, there's going to be another person right behind them that will use that boat.